Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am very excited to have with me Lola Adeyemo. And let me tell you about Lola. She is the CEO and lead facilitator at EQImindset, a management consulting firm, and the executive director and founder for a nonprofit called Immigrants in Corporate Inc., which is a membership platform empowering immigrant professionals to thrive in corporate America. She is also the co-founder and leads operations as COO at an IT consulting firm, Sapient Logic, a rapidly growing government contracting firm with 21 full-time employees. Drawing from almost 2 decades of experience across Fortune 250 global STEM companies, she partners with organizations to increase their business goals through business alignment and optimized employee resource groups, the ERGs. A TEDx speaker and San Diego Equal Opportunity Commissioner, Lola's impact has been recognized through multiple awards, including 40 under 40 recognitions and the 2024 Women in Business Awards. She hosts the Thriving in Intersectionality, I'll get it, podcast. And she'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And the author of the award-winning book, Thriving in Intersectionality, Immigrants, Belonging in Corporate America. So let's all welcome my guest as we talk about leading with authenticity and impact. Lola Adeyemo. Lola, such an impressive background. Very good.
Thank you, Vicki. Thanks for having me. It's always a little weird when people read your bio.
I know. So we are going to get into the theme, but first I ask 2 easy questions, just so we can get to know you a little bit better. So what part of the country, where do you call home right now?
Yeah, I'm based in San Diego, California. So I'm on the West Coast.
And we talked about all these great things you did. You're in several businesses like I am, but I'd love for you to share your journey, maybe as that young woman just first entering into the business world, and talk about the paths that took you to where you are today, maybe some of the challenges that you had to overcome, so the audience can see that it wasn't always a straight line, but it always can get you to success. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely don't see it as a straight line. So I wasn't one of those kids that knew exactly what they wanted to be when I was leaving college. But I was fortunate. My dad was in academia. My dad was a professor. And when I was going to college, filling out college forms, I had no idea what I wanted to be. But he said, you have good grades. And so medicine, I was supposed to be a doctor. For my dad, I was on my way to med school, and I just wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling it. And I'm usually, very passionate about things. I'm like in all the groups. And I was like, I don't think being a doctor really feels, plus I can't stand the sight of blood. So I don't want to be around
There's
that
a problem.
Maybe
That's a small problem. Yeah.
so I did go to school to study biochemistry because of that path to medicine, and then I did my master's in biotechnology. But real quickly, before I finished my master's, I recognized I didn't want to do research.
Mm,
I did some research in school, but I loved working with people. I
yeah.
took an elective with the School of Business, and I absolutely loved it. And I was like, okay, I want to do something that relates to the workplace. I did two internships while I was in college. That I was in a manufacturing company in the corporate space and in the lab. Um, but yeah, getting into corporate America, even though I was in the biotech space, I worked in operations in manufacturing, supported R&D for a while before I ended up in the culture and council platform, which happened because, again, almost like I had this second layer of job
Yeah.
happening through my involvement, and I was really drawn to the people side of things, the culture and HR platform. So that's where I ended up. That was my second career building under my life science STEM career, and
Mm.
I followed that path. I wasn't sure where it would end, but here we are. Entrepreneurship was one I definitely did not see coming. I always thought I was corporate girl going to stay in, climb that corporate ladder. I'm not a business person. So yeah.
It's interesting. A couple of things come to mind. I love that you knew as you went through medical that it really wasn't a good fit, and you had courage to say you wanted to go a different way. So many of the people, and I coach a lot of young people, and their parents are telling them where they are going to go, what they're going to do, and some of them, don't have the courage to say no, that's just not
Yeah.
right for me. And
Yeah, and
well, parents
I
out
think
there.
I think there's a cultural aspect to that too, and I think I'm grateful for my dad because it wasn't the norm for a child to sort of tell the parent. It's usually
Yeah.
you tell your child what they're going to do, and they do it. And they do it gladly because they've grown up expecting to be led by the parent, right? But I think one of the things I've always said ever since coming to the US and seeing people in college at different age is we really should be taking a gap before we focus on a program because we're too young. I was 16 when I went to college, right? I don't know what I want to be.
So true. First, what country did you immigrate from?
I was born in Nigeria.
Nigeria. Very good. So for me, I it's my sophomore year. My sister was applying. She's a year older than me, and she was starting to apply to colleges, and that was the first realization of how much it was going to cost. And so I went to my guidance counselor without telling my parents, and I said, I'm changing to a business course and track. And when I told my dad, he was so disappointed. But I promised him that I would go to college someday, but it just wasn't fair. So I went and got jobs and put myself through business school, 6-month program, and then went right into business and started paying my parents rent so they could afford to pay for my sister's college and whatnot. And I did go to college at 46, but I said, and I have a brother who's 20 years younger than me, and I advised him, I said, it's the best thing is to just work a little bit, see what you like, and then do it. So college was really easy. I mean, I did honors because I could apply what I had already learned, and
Exactly.
things that they were teaching. You weren't sitting there like, I'm never going to use that. It was like,
I know.
well,
Yeah.
so I think that's brings a lot of insight, and I believe, our society kind of pushes that you just go right into to school, but it's an expensive track to decide that partway through that
All right.
this isn't right for you, or to go all the way through and find out, oh my God, I need a different degree. So
Yes.
it's very
Yeah.
interesting. So you went from a scientist to DEI. advocating for the people that are unheard oftentimes,
Yeah.
and became this serial entrepreneur. So this transformation, as you made step by step, what were some of the pivotal moments that really made you decide DEI was an area that you could be impactful in?
Yeah, so I don't think there was ever a conscious decision. I don't think it's funny because I don't think I ever saw myself in that light. I think it was
Yeah.
just a natural thing for me to do, and I did it within my all the companies that I worked at. I had my day job and I was always involved in a bunch of things for different
Mhm.
groups and giving back to the community. So I had this thing that I was doing naturally in the spaces that I called my place of work. And
Mhm.
when I left corporate America, it was a conscious decision to leave corporate America and um, pursue what I wanted to do more on my own term instead of the full-time job that was taking
Mhm.
time and then I was having to volunteer my own time to other things. And it's interesting. I remember when I left corporate America and I wanted to start EQImindset. The first thing, EQI is from equity and inclusion mindset.
Mhm. Mhm.
And one of the first things I struggled with was I'm not a DEI expert. Because for me, what I saw as DEI expertise is people that
Mhm.
partner with companies to build their policies and their strategy. And this DEI strategic planning itself is a couple of years. You have to work with organizations at a deeper level. I saw myself as an employee resource group focused expert. And for me, that didn't necessarily fall under the DEI department. This
Mhm.
includes how organizations can build inclusive communities within their workplace. And a lot of my
Right.
clients don't have a head of DEI. It's been managed by HR. I had a client where it was managed under
Mhm.
communications, the head of communications
Mhm.
leading the group. So I think it took me having to just peel off the layers. Like, what do I
Yeah.
really want to do? I want to help companies build their communities, their internal communities. What's the best way to do that? You partner with the people that are making the decisions wherever they sit within the organization. It was something that I had lived through. I had been part of multiple employee resource groups, and then I started leading some. And then the role that eventually put me under the culture and HR platform was to support and manage employee resource groups. So I was able to have that a comprehensive view of what the employee resource group landscape looks like, what it needs to
Mhm.
look like. I was able to look at data. I was able to survey and look at the feedback from the group. So one of the first things I did when I started my company was launch a cross-company employee resource group. So I wanted to bring ERGs across different departments, different companies together. And we
Yeah.
still do that every month for going on 4 years now. And so it's like these are communities in the workplace, whatever your organization decides to call it. This is a way to bring your employees outside of their day job, their desk job, to do what they really feel like doing, and it still benefits your business. So I felt like these groups supported me. I saw how it changed people's mindset and productivity, and I wanted to help companies do it right.
Yeah. Earlier, before we started, you and I talked about the fact that I'm a Toastmaster and you had been a Toastmaster, and BRGs, ERGs didn't come. I was in corporate for a long time, 27 years, and really it was the last maybe 10 years, if that, that the company that I work with had introduced BRGs and ERGs. And so what I find now as I go and work with the different companies, um, I bring in Toastmasters as well, because part of what these groups need is to have a champion and to be able to get their message out clearly,
Right.
effectively, concisely, persuasively, if you will. And so you need that communication skill. And not everybody, when these groups start, they don't think about that. They just think of their mission and their vision. and not about, well, who's going to be that person, the face of the group, to talk about it, to
Right.
really get people on board and to
Right.
understand. And so it's been a nice collaboration for us to be able to do
Yeah.
that and to help the organizations.
Yeah,
What
and
is,
that's a good example, having Toastmasters, because when I'm thinking about workplace groups, I also include companies that have Toastmasters on site, because that's a space. That's a space where your employees are coming together. There's a group that has a structured format. And if you are not seeing the value as an organization to having a group like that to your business goal, then you're going to miss supporting these groups.
yeah, for sure. So what are some unique challenges that immigrant professionals are facing in a corporate America, and how can organizations better support them?
Yeah, so my work with ERGs, my work again with employer resource groups kind of flipped and helped me see the need for that. So for me, I refer to it as two sides of my work. Life
Mhm.
is the helping companies build inclusive workplaces. And then the other side of that is I saw that some of these spaces were really sort of rigid in the way they were defined. And as an immigrant, I struggled to find that connection for myself because by default, I will be placed in Black groups.
Mhm.
And a lot of them were heavily focused on African Americans in the US and the racism lived
Mhm.
experience. And I didn't have that, a
Yeah.
different challenge, barriers
Mhm.
faced as immigrants, regardless of when you move.
Yeah.
First is the communication
Mhm.
barrier, right? Saying
Yeah.
the same things, but meaning something different because you're not from here. You don't get what those words and nuances mean. Um,
Mhm.
so communication was actually the largest chapter in my book, which was from interviews of immigrants
Mhm.
across different companies, communication barrier, and it's written communication, it's spoken,
Mhm.
it's
Yes.
unspoken communication,
Mhm.
and how, immigrants had that barrier coming from a different culture of what words mean. And then it's the career choices, as we talked about, for immigrants,
Mhm.
reasons for choosing these value of credentials. Back home is very different. You don't go to school at 40, in your 40s or 50s. You go to school as a teenager, and in your early 20s, you should have so many degrees. That's the pride.
Mhm.
And, decades ago, it probably brought a lot of value, right? If you are educated, if you go to school, you
Right,
get a bunch
right.
of degrees, you make a lot of money.
Mhm.
I think things are changing back home now. It's
Mhm.
more of, entrepreneurship is
Yeah.
increasing. But again, that's a cultural value of certification. Is why if you see a lot of immigrants, they either have coming in on student visa or they've accumulated like 2, 3 degrees, and then they're
Mhm.
working in a job where they are underemployed
Mhm.
because then the certifications become just certifications because you don't
That's
have enough
exactly right.
experience. And
That's
so,
so
yeah.
true. And it's even for those in the US. When I was hiring people as a project manager, I remember I had a young girl who just got out of college and she had a master's and she wanted to be a department head or a director. And she had no experience. And while there are values to what you learn in business school and getting your master's, you cannot discount the people part of that, of being a leader. You can manage people, but not well if you don't lead people. And leading, that's where your life experiences come in place. Understanding when certain situations happen, how to best navigate them. And I think whenever you talk about the different cultures in a company, it provides so much value to a company of having this diverse group of cultures, because most organizations now, even small ones, have a global impact.
Right.
And if you don't understand that the different needs of your global audience, then you're not going to really be able to be
Yeah.
successful. So
Yeah.
what I always encouraged the young people is that let's do a 3-year track. So you can have 3 years to gain experience, and then we'll move you up if, things warrant that. Because now all those 3 years, though, you're giving us information and education and understanding of what you're bringing to the table, of what that will help the group, the company be better.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that. I think then that's where the individual piece comes in, right? If you are given 2 or 3 years to say, I'm going to give it my all in this role, how have you shown that you are gaining additional experience if you want to fast track things, right? Like it's not automatic. Just because then you give the 3 years doesn't mean that you're ready for the leadership. You still will be graded on experience. And if you haven't acquired it, you might not get it. And I think
Yeah.
that's the kind of the flip side of, in companies, we talk about the promotes based on tenure. Okay, you've done this, now go lead people. What if you don't want to lead people? What if you're not?
And that happens. I had a coworker that she had the skills to go to the next level, but she had personal things going on in her life that would have been difficult if she had to travel places or to be working long hours and not be home in time for the situation that she had. And so she, though, was vulnerable and honest and authentic enough to have that conversation with me. And I championed her, never giving her a bad review, but just saying it's not the right time. And when it was the right time, she did awesome. And I think we have to really, that's why it's so important to understand your people. Take the time to understand your people so that you can best serve them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So what has been the most successful strategy when you have to come and scale a team, but maintain that inclusive culture?
The most successful strategy, I think, well, success is kind of different depending on the industry, depending on the goal. But I think first, it's important for maybe communication is coming first, because I've also seen how miscommunication can cause a lot of friction, where if you're going someplace and your people don't think you're going, or they think you're going the other way, right? I think most people just want to be made aware. They want to be brought along with decision making, and leaders also have to be flexible to understand that just because we think we're doing this for the good of everybody, doesn't mean that it's going to work for everybody. We don't get kudos for doing 10 things if nobody really cares about the 10 things. So I think what's been successful is when leaders bring their teams along, right? And recognize where they are on the journey. I had an organization that brought me in because they wanted to launch ERGs. That was the goal, right? Come in, we want to launch ERGs for the first time. We're all excited. Well, the thing is, there's been the organization wasn't ready. The employees were not interested. And there was such a huge gap between the leadership and lower level employees at that company that middle management was almost non-existent. All decisions were made at the higher level. And so they poured money into, bring a bunch of consultants to do all these trainings. And then now we're ready for ERGs. And they had never done a survey that gave them a readiness pulse, right? So they've done survey where employees complained about things, but they had never done a survey or communicated to the company that, oh, we want to launch these groups. And so we had to start from scratch. We had to spend time like doing a lot of informational sessions. What are employee groups? What are some of the pain points, being led by a third party? And then give employees a couple of opportunities to be a part of these discussions, hear what's top of mind for people, And so, some people didn't want the ERGs, they just wanted the leadership to listen. And
Exactly right.
so it was so interesting because then they tried to launch it and then nobody came, nobody raised up their hand, and they were trying to like force people, like you go lead the group. And it really just needed conversation. So I
Yeah.
think, even when we talk about belonging, we talk about inclusion, I'm always like, you don't get to choose as a leader. You have to remember that you don't get to choose how your employees feel belonging. You create a space and an atmosphere where people trust your decisions and where they trust that the company is making moves that will support them. So you don't get to choose how people feel belonging. You create the spaces for belonging to naturally come out of it.
So good. Creating this space of belonging. They should put that on the wall. You mentioned the importance of being authentic in leadership, and how do you help others find their authentic voice?
Yeah, so one of the tools around the listening that I use, one of the tools I use around the feedback is listening and storytelling. And I think leaders don't have it, don't have an idea sometimes how much storytelling makes an impact, right? We can give numbers and all of that, all as a Toastmaster, we talk about storytelling. I think my first Toastmaster speech was it's still in my head because I ended up writing about it. It was about my dad and
Mm.
just sharing stories of how he was my first mentor. And I love stories. I see myself as a storyteller, and I think leaders need to do more of that. Be human so your employees see you're human, and it doesn't diminish your authority. It actually makes you more human. It makes people more likely to follow you. So I think when I think of authenticity and leadership, I really think of storytelling. Let people see you and hear you. Let them feel you. Then they can listen to your what you have up there. It's not you trying to give orders. People become naturally defensive when they feel like they are being controlled. I mean, we all know that. It's like, you don't tell me what to do. You're not the boss of me. Yeah, except in this case, you're the boss of you. But so I think storytelling, and I've, a lot of the leaders that really made a mark for me in corporate America were leaders that showed up and made me feel like I have a connection with them by telling their stories in a very real and authentic way. And then now that I'm connected to them, I trust their leadership. I trust their decisions on my behalf because they seem more human.
Mm. So I teach leading with the heart, the head, and the hands, just for that reason that you have to use your gut, your smarter brain to really build the relationships and that trust. And I was involved with our employee relations survey, always as the head of the person. They always gave me that job. And I think one of the things that it taught me is, a lot of companies, I don't think it's just mine, trust is a big deal where the scores are in the toilet, terrible because people, those that are at the top, don't build the relationships with maybe their inner circle group of people, but those that are doing all the work that are really the champions of the company don't have that relationship, don't understand, and therefore they have don't trust. But if you take the time to do that trust, then you definitely are able to build, use their head to build
Right.
the strategy and the vision and the mission to understand how do I connect to that. So I love that you said that. Time is flying by, and we could probably talk for a lot longer. We'll have to have you back to have another conversation. But it's time now for me to share my screen with the information about how to connect with Lola. And I'm going to do that right now. So if you're listening, you know that you should have taken notes all along. She gave you great information, but if you didn't, everything will be on my YouTube channel, Vicki Noethling. So please do subscribe, or you can go to the findyourleadershipconfidence.com website. So the website is lolaspeaker.com. She's on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok. You can search her name to be able to find her. LinkedIn is Lola Adeyemo. I said that wrong.
You did good.
Okay. And the ends in the PM. So she and I were both project managers at one time in our lives. So she's going to spend a little time talking to you about what she has on that website, what she puts out on LinkedIn, and how you can connect with her to see how you might be able to help your company or your organization. So Lola, it's all yours.
Yeah, thank you. So if you are a LinkedIn person like I am, because that's the space I started in, my primary clients are companies, corporations that want to do that work. LinkedIn is the place to follow me. It's also the quickest way to get a response from me. I've had family members that can't get me to respond to text and they message me on LinkedIn and I respond and they're like, wait, you respond? I was like, I got like 100 unread text on my phone. So it was so funny because now we know where to find you. But I hang out on LinkedIn a lot. I have a newsletter around employee resource groups. What I'm learning as I'm working with companies, what I'm learning from my cross-company ERG groups. So I'm almost always tracking research on workplace communities. What are some of the best practices that organizations are doing? So I have that on my newsletter, and I also have a weekly newsletter where I'm also sharing about employee resource groups and career development tips and conversations for individuals. I would say YouTube and Instagram, a lot more heavier on my podcast and my nonprofit. So Immigrants Incorporate is a nonprofit 501c3, but we have a membership platform, free membership. And so we have a community for immigrant professionals, immigrant allies that is really focused on supporting early and mid-career immigrants. We also reach out to campuses and international student offices to provide support through that transition into the corporate space. So if that's something that you know or you know someone, we also have in-person programs where we're really just building networks and having mentorship conversations outside of the workplace. So yeah, Instagram, YouTube. But otherwise, yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or just go to my speaker website at lolaspeaker.com to get a way to book a call with me if you need to have a chat.
Awesome. Lola, it's been so great chatting with you. Thanks for sharing all the information. I do recommend that you go out there. Would you remind them once again of the book?
Oh, yeah, my book is called Thriving in Intersectionality. And I know it's a mouthful. I got that feedback from my husband a couple of times when I was titling the book. It's like, people can't say that. That's too big. I was like, that's the point. I want them to get stuck and be curious about intersectionality. So that's the title of my podcast. That's the title of my book. It's on Amazon. It's anywhere you get your books. And I have the audiobook version on Audible as well. Yeah, check it out. I spoke with over 50 immigrant women. It was women focused, so I've been promoting it a lot this month. It was because it was originally intended to be a doctoral research. So I was supposed to narrow down. So I focused on immigrant women and what their experience is in corporate America, looked at it through the lens of when they immigrated. It was interesting having people that were born here who really strongly associated as immigrants. And then we had people that were brought here as children, people that immigrated like myself as an adult. I moved at 24, right? Like what's some of the commonalities that we found with the experiences in corporate America specifically, and how they feel like their cultural background has shaped, their career choices and the way they lead and show up at work.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being a great guest. And as always, I remind everyone that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.